What's good, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Michael, and today we have another banger video. Today we're going to be evaluating Scott, Sam, and Mark's squat form. We're also going to be doing the deadlift and the bench, and we're using some older footage when they first started squatting. And this is really interesting because they all had different problems, but they were all super common. So watch this video, pick up a couple tips. Without further ado, let's get right into it.
What's good, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael, and today we have another banger!
Jesus. So we're gonna first start off with Mark's form. Now, out of the three, Mark had the best form by far when we first started off. He had one problem that we can see right off the bat, and that's when he grabs that bar, his wrists are flexed. If he loses that bar, he's not going to be able to catch it, and he's going to end up spraining his wrist, and it's putting a lot of strain on his wrist. Something really small, so we're not going to nitpick that right now, even though that we just did. What we're going to focus on is when he actually takes his first squat. Now we can see that he takes a fairly wide stance with his toes pointed outwards, which is completely fine. Everybody's stance is going to be a little bit different depending on how your femur fits in your hip socket and your overall limb length. However, when he takes his first squat, you'll see that his feet are caving in, and there's various issues that could be causing this. However, for him, it was that his knees were not tracing over his toes. However you have your feet placed, you want to ensure that your knees are tracing over your toes, like in a line, if that makes sense. His were not. So what we did is we actually moved his toes in. So now let's talk about Scott's form. Scott's form really wasn't bad, but he had some interesting problems. Again, when we first start, we can see he has those wrists extended, right? We want to correct that. Second thing is, one of the most simplistic things can be one of the most crucial things, and that is you start behind the barbell, you grip it, you look at that center knurling, that pattern. Some bars don't have it, but stare at the center if it doesn't, and then you go underneath it. You can't just start in front of it and then put your hands there. You need that bar to be even. Now he steps back, and what do we see? First we see that he has trouble in the hole, meaning he can't reach full range of motion. This is extremely common. So the first thing we want to do is I want him to kind of sit in there just a little bit longer and then go back up so he gets more comfortable in the hole. And then his largest problem that we can see is that his lateral movement of the knee is essentially his knee was going left and right. It was kind of shaking and he couldn't even control it. And the reason for this is a muscle called the vastus medialis. I'll actually pull up a diagram right here very briefly to show you what it is. It's one of the four muscles of the quadricep, and it helps stabilize the knee. He had some weakness in this muscle group, but what we did is we just continued to work under light loads until he could stabilize his knees, and then we went up in weight from there. Something I mentioned is I want him to push his knees outward. A lot of people, if they're moving too much weight, they'll have their knees cave inward as they go up. We don't want that. It's okay to a certain extent, but if it's drastic, we want to fix it. Now let's talk about Sam's form. Again, we can see he takes that extended wrist and he puts it too high on his back, as well as did Scott. Now, all we did for this is we had him create a shelf on their back. You're pulling your scapula back and down, and you're creating this shelf. And it's probably going to end up being lower on your back than you're comfortable, because generally you don't put something on your back that's the shape of a barbell as far as everyday life goes. Now, once we fixed his bar position, his wrist position, then he stepped back. We're still talking about the first time, so technically he hadn't fixed those yet. He stepped back, and we could see instantly that he shifts onto his toes, and his knees travel way over his toes, and he loses his balance. Okay? So there's a lot going on here. First thing is, can your knees trace over your toes? Yes, they can, as long as your feet are flat. His were not, and he couldn't reach full depth. For Scott, he had lack of mobility. but it was small. So we fixed it by practicing the movement, whereas Sam's was more drastic. So what we did for him is we had him rack the weight. There's no purpose in progressing at that. He needs to get comfortable with the movement first. So we did a progression to get him to where everybody else was. We started with the goblet squat, which is where you have a dumbbell in your hands and you keep it close up to your chest and you're squatting down. And you're trying to keep as upright of a posture as possible. We're not focused on the weight. We're focused on the form. Get it perfect. Then, once it's perfect, you can gradually increase the weight. Sam was up to 45, 50 pounds, so we knew strength wasn't a problem at this point. So then we had him transition to the barbell. And from the barbell, he went to a tall box squat. So he was doing box squats. He went to a tall box, something that was elevated surface. And then gradually over time, we decreased that box till nothing was virtually there. And from time to time, when he tries to go straight into that barbell squat, he'll go back on his toes and go back to his original form. So we just have him do one set of that goblet squat. And then he goes into the barbell to get used to that motor pattern. And over time, this will become more natural, but it's something you need to work on. Something we had all three of them do was take off their shoes in the beginning. And why is that? That's because they were squatting in tennis shoes. And tennis shoes are made for running, meaning they have a lot of absorption in them and a lot of cushion to like move around in. And although the shoes might not be the problem, it eliminates a variable that may be the problem. So we had all of them take off their shoes. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to smash that thumbs up button, leave comments down below, and subscribe. I have more content coming out soon. See you guys in the next video. Peace, elites.